present and the role of historical buildings in Ghana's tourism development. How you, like me, have you been wondering why we have the kind of architecture that we have in Ghana? What's the inspiration behind? Why do we have the styles? Why were these buildings and places put together? Now, I'm going to talk about the Elmina Castle, which is my destination dive today. I will share some legends and story, and I will give you an industry spotlight on Kofi Kinata. I love his songs, and as we're celebrating Ghana's month, I want to tell you a little bit about Kofi Kinata and his music. Now, the Elmina Castle, dear listeners, is my special hidden gem for today. Imagine yourself standing on the windswept coast of Ghana, the salty Atlantic breeze in your hair, that's if the wind is blowing my hair, and the sound of seagulls. Do we have seagulls in Ghana? Well, I believe so. As you gaze out at the horizon, you notice a majestic structure rising from the shore. That's Elmina Castle. Now, the Elmina Castle was built by the Portuguese in 1482. It's one of our oldest European structures in sub-Saharan Africa. Can you believe it? That's over 500 years. And this fortress has witnessed the rise and fall of empires and the brutal transatlantic slave trade and the struggle for independence. Now, as you walk through the castle's ancient stone walls, you can almost hear the whispers of the past, the echoes of enslaved Africans held in captive within these very walls, waiting to be shipped across the Atlantic, the footsteps of European traders negotiating the sales of human life, the cry of freedom fighters resisting the oppressive colonial powers. Elmina Castle is one that is more than just a historical landmark. It's a testament to the resilience and strength of the Ghanaian people. It's a reminder of the brutal legacy of slavery and colonialism, but also it's one of the triumph of the human spirit. Now, as we conclude our journey on the Elmina Castle, I want you to leave with a sense of pride and connection to the shared history. Let us honor the memories of those who came before us and strive to build a legacy that will enhance a brighter future for ourselves and the generations to come. If you are just tuning in, it's Root and Route, and I was just sharing the history of Elmina Castle. Elmina Castle is in Cape Coast. The first time I went there, I left there crying. I don't think that I know anyone who, whether local or from the diaspora, who has been to the Elmina Castle that's left there with dry eyes. You know, the stories, even when you're walking in the dungeon, I don't know if it's your mind, but it feels like you can literally hear people crying and whispering. It took a lot for us to earn independence, and we're still celebrating Ghana Month. Ghana is 68 years of freedom of independence. So stay tuned and let's listen to some music, and I will be back to introduce my amazing speaker, architect Kojo Deban.
Z 101.9 FM. You're tuned in to Zed 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
It's Roots and Routes bringing destination stories to life with your amazing Priscilla Mawina Wellington, your Power Smile ambassador, redefining customer service in Africa. I have an amazing guest today, Architect Kojo Durban. Now, this is an amazing human being that I've been following on Facebook for a long time until quite recently when we met in person. And, you know, it's like my celebrity crush. Just before the show, I was telling him that, Uncle Kojo, you are my celebrity crush because he's a man of intellect. So I want to just give you a little bit of bio about him because he and I will be having discussion on reviving the past, enhancing the present, and the role of historical buildings in Ghana's tourism development. Now, who is Uncle? Well, I call him Uncle. He's an amazing uncle. Architect David Kojo Durban has been a chartered architect and associate member of the Ghana Institute of Architects for the last 20 years. He's a CEO of Ethnic International Limited, a research-based architectural and project management firm in Accra. He holds a bachelor's in design from the Department of Architecture from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kumasi, in 1994. I think I was barely trying to write my ABCDs as an undergrad, and he developed an interest in the social, environment, and cultural affairs of rural sub-Saharan Africa. Their personal research focusing on heritage architecture, and traditional architecture. Now, during his postgraduate years, he gained a keen interest in the civilization of Africa and history of cultures of West Africa. He also studied at the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, with key interest in researching into heritage buildings, historiography, and history of architecture in Africa. For the last decade, Architect Durban has brought these interests to bear on his profession. He's an advocate for the preservation of heritage places and structures of Ghana. He is the director of the Center for Architecture and Arts Heritage Africa and currently serving as a consulting stakeholder on Ghana's Cultural Policy Review Committee concerning heritage architecture. Uncle Kojo, you are welcome to Roots and Routes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Priscilla. Thank you.
I'm so happy to see you and be having this conversation with you today. So today we want to bring some knowledge of architecture within the tourism development space for our listeners to understand and have an appreciation of how these buildings, these structures enhances our tourism space. So just tell us something.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity to talk to your listeners. I'm pleased to be here. And also because it's an opportunity for me to do what I think I was born to do, to bring architectural heritage to light. Because over the decades, over the 5 decades or more that have gone, what has happened is Ghana has the citizenry of Ghana. We've been busy with other things. Other things have overcome our love for our environment, our building environment, so much that the buildings that are there that have a certain meaning, that can contribute to tourism, that have a story, is becoming covered in our eyes so much that we drive through the city front and back every day, and we have lost the meanings of those buildings, and no one seems to really remember what these structures are like. But I have discovered that Accra is a very interesting place. It has always been a very interesting place, and the buildings in it have a certain meaning in which I believe that it can contribute so much to tourism, because in other countries it is architectural tourism that drives the tourism. Talk about the pyramids of Egypt, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, these, or the Colosseum in Rome. These, and then of course the other parts of tourism, the hospitality, encircles these. Those are spin-offs. But the real centers of these things are the architectural, which has become symbols. You see, and we also have such architecture, and not only one, but a lot of it, which we can harness and, to contribute to our tourism sector.
Wow, thank you so much. And I want you to share with myself and our listeners the importance of these buildings. First of all, what are some of the most significant buildings that we have in Ghana in terms of architecture, and how significant is it to our tourism development?
Yes. So, fortunately for us, Ghana has got is rich with architectural gems, and for somebody like this, wherever you see wherever in Ghana you go, Ghana is made up of 4 ecological zones. You see, there's the coastal area, there's the forest belt, there's the savannah, and the Sahel as you go up north. And all of these have informed different types of, first of all, traditional architecture. The different types. Each ethnic cultural group has got the way, their traditional forms of architecture, especially up north. You have Dagomba architecture, which is different from the Kasena Nankani, which is different from the Lobi, which is different from the Wa. You have that. You have Ashanti traditional architecture, which is fast vanishing. You have the forest architecture, the courtyard complex that you live, and then you also have the coastal cities. And we, of course, because of the trade at the coast, it has developed because of the interactions with Europe, and so on. You see that our cities, like old cities like Cape Coast, old cities like Takoradi, they are older parts of the city, like Jamestown in the 19th century and so on. And these cities have developed, and all this has given the cities and the architecture a story. So when you come to Ghana, you are spoiled for choice of architecture. There's so much for you to be able to see. As a Ghanaian, as a foreigner, there's so much for you to see. So it depends on even which sector that you want to do. Do you want to do traditional? There's a lot. Do you want to do a colonial architecture? There's plenty. If you want to do modern architecture, independence era architecture, there's a lot for you to do. And even in contemporary architecture, you have. So it's not possible to cover all our architectural heritage. Each one of them is special, especially to somebody like me.
I know. But Uncle Kojo, do you think that we have even scratched the surface when it comes to architectural tourism? Do we even know that there's an opportunity in that space?
I'm beginning to believe that we haven't really scratched the surface, but the indication is there. We are saying the year of return. what is the focal point of the year of return? The castle. And the castle is architecture. You see, it is not so much, if it were saying the year of return, when they come, when the African American tourists come, to what do they come to? The first point of call is the architecture, the European architecture that was standing there, which has become a secret place, and the last point where they are our ancestors related to before they left. You see, it was at that point that they lost their identity, they lost their language. Within those months of in that dungeon, they lost it all before they were even put on a ship. You see, so architectural tourism. There are other, as I've told you, there are other. The castles is not the end of the story. We have focused on Elmina and Cape Coast architecture for a very long time. But after that, the story continues. That's just chapter 1. There's chapter 2 and chapter 3. There's colonial architecture. And then there is modern architecture. And all of these types of architecture in other countries have become tourism assets. They become tourism resources for them. And we have even more of that here. Except that maybe we don't know and we haven't actually taken time to explore it, especially in policy. You know, so we are missing out of that. And I think that this is the time that we should begin to speak about it and, harness that part.
I want to believe that all my friends at the Ghana Tourism Authority and the GATOF and the Ministry of Tourism are listening. Per Uncle Kojo's view, there's so much opportunity in that space that we need to explore, that we have not even scratched the surface yet. And in terms of the focal point for the diaspora when they come to Ghana for the beyond the return, what is the plan? What is the agenda in terms of architectural tourism? And I know the wonderful lady Annabelle who heads beyond the return. How can Uncle Kojo? How can the historical buildings? You've mentioned the Elmina Castle. You've mentioned the Cape Coast Castle, even Jamestown, some of the buildings in Accra. How can these historical buildings be effectively preserved and conserved for future generation? I know that at least over the past 15 years, I've been opportune to see these kind of architectures. How can we preserve it, especially when we are in a country where maintenance is an issue for us? How can we preserve these architectures for future generation to have an appreciation of it, and also to extend the story, the history behind these architectures?
Yes, I believe that preservation, the first point of preservation is legislation. You must have a law. These buildings must be protected by law. Now, the forts and castles are protected by a UNESCO convention, which we've signed on to. They are World Heritage Sites. When we say a building is a World Heritage Site, what it means is that it has a certain value, which we call a universal outstanding value, that makes it also applicable to the whole world. It is history that concerns the whole world and not just Ghana. So when you take Jamestown, you take the James Fort. There's another James Fort sitting somewhere in the Caribbean or in the Americas somewhere. It's part of a trade route. Now that history of the transatlantic slave trade can be told across the sea. And we are just one part of it. So all these stories, when you put a legislation around the buildings, then there are rules that are drawn within that convention to preserve them. You see, but that's not the only one. You can now make the whole of Jamestown a heritage area. But that means you have to put the legislation around it and have rules to conserve it. That means people can't just knock down their houses and put anything. You can't just sell and just go. There are rules and regulations that we have to put, and that's what other countries have done, like Singapore, Britain, everywhere. There are areas that you can't even change a doorknob, without seeking a certain level of a permit to do so. And we also must identify areas, historic streets, historic areas, so that some of these structures can be preserved. The knowledge of being able to preserve them, what exactly to do, is what we call conservation. That is the processes that you will apply. But the preservation is generally the legislative instruments that you place that everybody must respect. What it means is you can't knock things down anyhow, you can't put things there anyhow, and so on. But this is some place that we have to get to, with our law. This is somewhere where we have to go, because it's been past 60 years of independence and we still haven't gotten this. Meanwhile, other countries, even former British colonies, have been through this for decades, whilst in Ghana, we quite haven't gotten there. So legislation, is the first point of preservation.
Okay, that's amazing. We need, for us to be able to preserve our historical architecture and be able to pass it down to the next generation, we need legislations that protect or laws that ensures that these places are well preserved. We can't just have people selling and putting up buildings within those areas.
Yes.
And I think that will really help in preserving those places.
Yes.
Before we came on the show, we're discussing about the lighthouse. So Dr. Damien, a few weeks ago, was on the show. He also mentioned that I mentioned it, and I will do a follow-up this week. The lighthouse is locked. That's an architecture that needs to be preserved.
Yes.
And that's a tourist site also that people are excited about visiting, but it's been locked down due to maintenance. Whose job is it to ensure that? So in terms of the laws being in place, I believe that if there was a law to preserve and ensure that place is well maintained, we will not be having such things like having the place locked up. And
yes, it's locked up also because the staircase, circular staircase in there was metal and it's rusting. It's dangerous to climb, so they won't encourage numbers of it to climb. But the important thing is, what is the lighthouse? What is its significance? Yeah. That's what people have to know. It's when you get to know these things that there is an edge, in a campaign to have it open so that people can experience it. Because what happens is, this particular building that we see called the lighthouse, you and I and everybody else, we live on land, but its significance is for the sea also. It is when you are on the sea, what you see and know of the lighthouse, that gives it its significance on the land. Wow. You see, not actually you looking at it, because if people ask you, what are those red and white bands? What are they? People do not know. You see, but what it is that it was painted red and white so that when you are on the sea during the day, you can see it clearly against the backdrop, because they realized that at first it was almost all white, one plain color. But when you look from the sea, you see that the city is rising up behind it, and therefore they cannot see the lighthouse well. So they paint it in the number of red bands shows you how far you are above the ocean floor. And this sits on top of a hill.
Wow.
You see. Yes, you see, and then you also look at the kind of the light that flashes.
Yeah.
The light that flashes. Today we have, electronic beacons, but at that time it was mechanical. You see, and so when it's very difficult for you to know where you are, whether you are in Takoradi, Accra, or Tema, when you are on a ship in that dark. But if you see a light blinking, meh, 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 it's doing that, then you know you are in Accra. So the amount of beeps, the signal beeps tells you that what you are seeing is Jamestown, Accra. Tama has a different beep.
Okay.
So all of these ones, these lighthouses are stations. They are navigation stations, and the light that it flashes, the way it flashes, tells you that there are rocks in front of you. So no ship should come close. You see,
otherwise
the first one was built in
shipwreck.
the 19th century, and this one was built in 1932. So this is it's more to do with navigation. You see, so when you have to know what that building actually does. From the lighthouse also, you can tell people, the fishermen can tell how far they are away from sea, and there are portions where you don't fish because they believe that the marine deities live there, and there are days that you shouldn't disturb them by fishing there, and they can tell that where that particular place is from the direction from the lighthouse. You see, so all of these things, should be able to guide the significance of it for the community, for tourists, for navigation, and for city dwellers. Yeah.
Wow. If you are just tuning in, you're tuning in to the Route and Routes, bringing destination stories to life, and you are listening to architect David Kojo Durban. I am learning so much. My book is even full. I hope that if you are a tourism and hospitality lover, then you are always seated every Saturday, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. to listen to all the amazing guests that we bring in to give us clarity, to share knowledge for us to really understand our tourism space, our hospitality space, our cultural heritage, and be able to sell it and have an appreciation of it. If you have any question or contribution to the discussion today, you can send us a WhatsApp on 0544 321019. 0544321019. Share or if you have a question for Uncle Kojo. We will be right back with some music.
Z 101.9 FM. 101.9 FM.
You are tuning to Z101.9 FM Root and Route, bringing destination stories to life. And we were just discussing, or we are still discussing, reviving the past, enhancing the present, the role of historical buildings in Ghana's tourism development. And Uncle Kojo has, really been teaching us. I didn't even know the significance of the lighthouse, even the red and white, what it means. And I know that you are taking note. These are very, very important information that as a tourism professional, you need to know and you need to understand. Uncle Kojo, how can, we spoke about preservation of these architectures in the community, but how can our local communities be engaged in preserving these edifices or these architectures? Because there are times that you go to a tourist destination that even the community, they don't have an appreciation. Like you were saying, how we drive through Accra every day. We're literally seeing, but we can't see.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So how can we get the local community to be part of the preservation and promotion of our historical buildings and architecture?
Community engagement is a big part of preservation, in that when you want to preserve architecture, one of the first rules is that it must mean something to the people who are there. If for the people the meanings have changed, it means you'll be preserving something, but its basic meanings would be gone. It doesn't mean that the building should be wiped off, but it means that its meanings probably would have changed. So, for example, you can have a shrine, like an Ashanti shrine, and the whole community around it would have been Christianized. It doesn't mean that you should knock down the shrine, but what it means that their meaning towards what it is it's not in the shrine. In that, if a lady cannot give birth, he's not going to the shrine over there to pray. Might go somewhere else. But the structure itself tells the history of the community. You see, so you must engage the community in programs, with programs. You see, for example, in Jamestown, one of the things that you find when it comes to finding out the levels of how people have engaged with structures is the way they'll put billboards, or they'll put posters on the castle walls. They'll just go and put their funeral posters on the castle walls, you see. But it means that they... Yes, exactly. So we... And not only them, because we say, they are uneducated. We ourselves put billboards everywhere. There are large billboards standing right in front of the National Theatre, you see, blocking the view of the National Theatre. That means that people want to, and these billboards have got, an advert of the play that's going to happen. So people want to engage with the play that is happening in it, but they don't, not the building itself. You see, so again, it is the knowledge that you give not only the community but every class of society about the building. That also helps. So it's not only the community as the local community, but community at all levels. And in this case, even the political community. Even the political community has to know, when it comes to buildings like the National Theatre.
It's amazing you're going there, because I was just going to ask.
The National Theatre is not only is it an amazing design, it's a very symbolic building. Okay, the symbol is that at that time when it was planned in the early 80s, the Chinese, were coming to Africa, trying to boost their presence in Africa, and they thought that architecture, the symbol of architecture, would be one of the best things. So they threw out a competition in China that they wanted to, give Ghana a national theater. And the Chinese architects bidded for this job, and the architect that won the building, it was a very big thing for them, because this was their entrance. At that time, Chinese architects were not known all over the world, but they made their entrance through Ghana, which is the through architecture. Yes, you see. And of course, if you get to know the story of the National Theatre itself, and I spoke to the architect who's 90 years old. Okay,
that was the story I read on Facebook.
He's now 90 years old.
Oh wow!
Master Cheng Taining. He said one of the buildings that brings out the story of inspiration to himself is the National Theatre of Ghana, because he won the competition. And he was so elated. At that time, he was just about 50 or 55. He was so happy. It was one of the highlights, only to bring the design to the Ghanaians. And the Ghanaians said they didn't like the design. So the original design of the National Theatre is not what you see there. The Ghanaian, they said they didn't like the video because it just looked too ordinary. They made the whole, and they told them that they wanted something cultural. They wanted something unique, something that you can't find anywhere else in the world. And so he also didn't know anything about Africa. He had never been here. He didn't know what to do. He got confused. And in fact, he said at one point, he became so depressed that he thought, look, he should just give it up, because then you are not an African. You are not an African. You know very little about the culture. And then, well, if you've won the competition and they don't like it. So somehow in his mind, he just gave up. Until one day he was called and told him that, look, you need to present another one. So he put and he's also a philosopher. He put everything together and encouraged himself that, so you realize what a Ghanaian architecture, the demands of Ghanaians for their city was at the time. So he told them that the Chinese they were dictating to the Africans. This time the Africans were demanding what they wanted. They said, go and try a second time. We will give you the site. This is what we want. And it was a very odd triangular site. Not a big site. And so he decided that he would put himself to it, learn about Ghanaian sculpture, see whether he can get some bowls, something that looked like a stool. And he really put all his ingenious senses to it, and then came out with the design. And finally, when the Ghanaians saw it, they said, this is what we want. And so when you read his biography and his book, the National Theatre stands out as one of the most unique projects he has ever undertaken. And it won two architectural awards in China. Wow. And it's one of the world's 100 most best designed buildings. Wow. That building you see there has got it. You see, it's like one of our greatest icons.
Yeah, but and we pass there every day.
For the pride of an architect is that your building will be put on money. The country's nation. So, in his office, he has a big CD, a big CD,
the old currency.
Yes, currency with the National Theatre on it, because for his design to now be represented on a national currency means it has reached the highest form of recognition that an architect can ever reach. You see, so when you listen to his story, if you listen to his story told by him about that building over there, it helps you to see and appreciate that building in a very different way. You see, it's a symbol of, and then of course, the reason that the Chinese decided to do that was because of Nkrumah's friendship with China. Nkrumah decided that he was going to stand up for China because they were not part of the UN. And he decided that he was going to get them to be part of the UN General Assembly. And he stood for them against US and all the Western, and the Africans voted. And when he died, the year he died, 1972, China became part of the UN General Assembly. So they don't play with Ghana at all. Ghanaians and Chinese, we have a certain bond that is historical.
Yes.
And the National Theatre is a symbol of that friendship of our former leaders and how we were going to develop together at the time until there was that break. Yes.
Wow. Uncle Kojo, we're definitely continuing this conversation next week for a part 2. Okay. My dear listeners, if you are engaged like I am, if you're having goosebumps about the story behind the National Theatre, like I'm just having a new appreciation. I've always appreciated the National Theatre as a young child. My mom always take me there for Kida Fest and concert party those days. So I really love the place, and I pass there all the time. But with the history behind the building, the architecture, and it has given it new meaning. I believe that you also have a better appreciation of the place before now than you did before. Uncle Kojo, my last question, and then we'll do the rest next week, is what do you think are some of the economic benefits of these buildings and how we can maximize it? And I think that with the submission of the story behind National Theatre in itself alone is, I have so many things in my mind. But how do you think that we can maximize this in terms of the tourism aspect?
Yes. Well, first of all, to maximize it, we must preserve it. What is important is that people must be sure that that story will not change, that they will one day come
be
and it is not
in
there.
The story.
You see, so when we put a certain legislation around it, first of all, so you see nowadays we are not having March past at Independence Square anymore. It will get to a time when somebody will say, so what is this large space for? Okay, can we use it for something better?
Oh no.
The answer must be no. You see,
Yes.
no, because on paper, guided by law, it means no, don't do anything there. You know, that place is hallowed grounds, is for our independence, and so on. So that is the story, and they're preserving the story and making sure that the story and the place remains the same is very, 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 very important. And then next is to set values to the buildings. You see, we always tend to believe that when buildings are growing older, there is less value. And so therefore, when we pull it down and put up apartments, you will get value
now
for
we
it.
have so many
You see,
apartments with.
But when we look at architecture's correlation of art, why is an art which is in the 17th century, why is it millions of dollars compared to something that was printed today?
Yeah.
You see, it means that the value system has been set that something that is old, something that is heritage, has more value than what you will see today. You see, so they've put a price on history. And we also must learn to put the value and the price of a certain historical building so that there is nothing that can help, that will make you exchange it for anything else, like to put an apartment, which is something that is happening in Ghana. When we think about returns, money returns, then you want to raise something like a trade fair site and put, it out. You see, but that round pavilion you see there, at first there was a canopy on it. Yes, there was a large canopy which was blown off, which has to be replaced. Now that place is getting gutted by the winds and the sea winds. But the symbol of the national, the trade fair, is that the Nkrumah was trying to tell us that to have a center of industry where we will showcase what we can do in relation to other countries and how we can sell the stuff that we make on an international platform on our land. You see, and so that place also has got its historical significance. But because somehow we didn't do a certain historical assessment of it, we've raised it down and nothing has come of it. And neither have the hotels that we wanted to. Nothing has come of it. You see, but the important thing is that we must rework that particular symbol, that round Africa pavilion, because it was not just a sign of independence, it was a sign of our independence economically. If you want any building, that should show the symbol of our economic independence, the industrialization of country made in Ghana. It is that building which we have left to rot out there in La. Reviving it reviving that symbol will reset, that sentiment, that drive towards industrialization. But when we let it go, it is carrying its spirit away. Yeah.
Wow. Uncle Kojo, I don't want to say give us your last words because you come next week, but leave myself and the listeners. I think Kofi, my DJ, and I, we are flabbergasted with the level of intellect and the history that you're sharing with us today. I want you to leave something with our listeners until we meet again next week to pick up the conversation.
Okay. So, architectural heritage is the next frontier for tourism. Its potential to help the tourism sector and Ghana's economic growth is vast, and the potential is there. It is something that we must focus on. It is something that we must explore, and I think that we are on the road, with this opportunity to talk to you this week. To do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Architect David Kojo Deban, for coming on the show today. If you are just tuning in to Z101.9 FM, you are listening to the Roots and Routes, bringing destination stories to life. And Uncle Kojo and I were just discussing about the role of historical buildings in Ghana's tourism space, reviving the past and enhancing the present. And one of the things that stood out for me in preserving our historical buildings, we need legislation that helps to preserve these architectures and the stories and the values, understanding the values of these buildings, the stories behind it, will let us have a new sense of purpose, a new sense of appreciation for these buildings. Uncle Kojo, thank you so much. Definitely, we're continuing the conversation next week. If you are just tuning in, this is Roots and Route. Let's listen to some music from Kofi Kinata, and I will be right back.
Z 101.9 FM.
No rushing, also minute to then, at 2 minutes there will go chill. Now we're in for one listen. Money nano so anchor then. Integrate the jar with go. Roman father so I then. I will buy some girl. One woman in
101.9 FM.
More the prison so on ye then. Nakadesh menin palia. And you win me ayo. Baby, baby, the duty ta. Nada when I'm here so. Feel so good.
101.9 FM.
If you are vibing to Kofi Kinata's song, the title is Overthinking. Please don't overthink it. This is Roots and Routes, bringing destination story to life. And Kofi Kinata is my industry spotlight in music. And Kofi Kinata, he's a unique blend of traditional African rhythm and contemporary beats. In fact, I love his Fanti accent. I love the way he's showcasing Ghana on the map with his local dialects in the music and just showcasing Ghana in a very beautiful way. It's been an amazing time with you today. We've learned so much about our historical buildings and how important it is to our tourism development. And I had an amazing guest today, Uncle David Kojo Deban, who will be here again next week. And it's your Power Smile Ambassador, Priscilla Wellington, redefining customer service in Africa on the Roots and Routes show, bringing destination stories to life. Listen to the music, and I will be back with some customer service tips for the week.
101.9 FM.
Oboni yase, anana te maleas. Ejay, junjunu apapa.
Is Lifestyle, Leisure, and Business Radio.
Kali yase, obiani wiya. Inti se nyebiya kai unuya. Ipa beye bio na so ambe ni nyina. Nemo, so opportunity di ba sese oyina. Benjobia. Kasi musabe di odoso, ajenje no e bokwantam. Obi baba, obi boko na pepe no e bokwantam. Kasi no around. Let me see what goes around, me surely come around. I will be a man, you know. But in any parliament, you know. My way, you and me, my way,
Z 101.9 FM.
It's Z101.9 FM, bringing destination stories to life on Roots and Routes. It's Priscilla Mawina Wellington. Today, if you are just tuning in, you have missed so much, and I hope that you will make time with me and Nee next week at 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. every Saturday to listen to amazing guests from the tourism and hospitality space. Our destination dive today was about the Elmina Castle. My special guest was architect David Kojo Deban, who talked a lot about the rich architectural gems that we have in Ghana and how important it is to preserve it, put legislation around it in order to maximize the tourism potential in that space. And we just listened to Kofi Kinata. He's my spotlight in the music space. You know, music is tourism, and I'm happy to be with you. Some customer service tips that I want to leave you for the week is smile. Yes, everybody know me for Power Smile. Smiling is a kind, please expression that lets the corners of your mouth goes up, exposing your teeth. Yes, so the whole of this week, try and smile, because when you smile, you are the first beneficiary of those smiles, and then it boosts your immune system and releases happy hormones to enhance your stress. So if you're somebody who is very stressed all the time, it means that you need to smile a lot. And Walding University did a research that says that smiling is not a learned behavior. You were born with it. So those of you that say that that's how my face is, please, I'm telling you, it's a lie. So I'm leaving you with a broad, beaming, beautiful power smile. See you next week on the Roots and Route, bringing destination stories to life. Have an amazing weekend. Bye.
You're tuned in to Z 101.9 FM. Your